On the evening of August 1st, 1986, 21-year-old Diane Sindel finished her shift at the Wellington pub in Bebington, near Birkenhead, where she worked part-time as a barmaid. Diane was well known in the community, a florist by day. She was regularly seen driving her blue van around Seacombe making deliveries, whilst also working evenings in the pub. Engaged for 4 years, she was saving money for her upcoming wedding. Diane left the pub at around 11:30 p.m. and headed home. She got into her blue van and began the 5-mile journey back to Seacombe. However, as she drove along Borough Road in Birkenhead, the van ran out of petrol near a car parts store. 2 workers at the store saw her van stop and later saw her leaving the vehicle, setting off on foot. It was around midnight when Diane started walking along Borough Road, presumably heading to the petrol station about half a mile away. Several witnesses saw her that night. A bus driver, Gary Lamb, spotted her looking in her bag near a bus stop. Shortly after that, a taxi driver saw Diane walking with a man who appeared to be arguing with her. He described the man putting his hand out toward Diane almost aggressively, but assumed they were just an intoxicated couple having a tiff on their way home from the pub. This was the last time Diane Sindel was seen alive. The next day, around noon on August 2nd, a local woman walking her dog made the grim discovery of Diane's body down an alleyway on Borough Road. She had been brutally attacked and her clothes were missing. The next day, on August 3rd, some of Diane's clothing was found burning on Bidston Hill, several miles away, by a couple walking their dogs. Among the charred items were her jeans and a page from her Barclays bank book. It seemed like the person responsible had been interrupted while trying to destroy evidence. For weeks there were no solid leads and the case stalled. As the attack was so brutal, the police chose not to reveal details, but the media did discover that Diane had several bite marks on her body, leading them to nickname the killer the Wolfman and the Beast of Birkenhead. After a Crime Watch reconstruction of Diane's last known movements, the investigation finally gained traction. It was discovered that Peter Sullivan, a local man with a history of petty crimes, had crossed paths with Diane that night. Sullivan, then 29, had been drinking heavily after losing a darts match at the Crown Hotel on Conway Street. At 11:30 p.m, he stumbled back to his maisonette in Queensberry Gardens. There, for reasons unknown, he armed himself with a 2-foot-long iron crowbar, stuffed it inside his jacket, and went wandering in the direction of Borough Road. In a confession that he later retracted, Sullivan claimed he stopped Diane to ask for the time, and was then overcome with a sudden desire to kill. After striking her several times with the crowbar, he dragged her into the alleyway, removed her clothes, and committed unspeakable acts to her lifeless body. In November 1987, Peter Sullivan was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison. The clinching evidence was that of an odontologist who told the jury that the bite marks on Diane's body matched the accused man's teeth perfectly. They were as unique as a fingerprint and just as conclusive. Now in his 60s, Sullivan remains behind bars with no prospect of release. The murder of Diane Sindel shocked Merseyside, and though decades have passed, the crime still lingers in local memory, with a memorial plaque in Birkenhead marking the place where her life was so cruelly taken. On the 22nd of August 2009, Paula Hounsley, 37, was dropped off at her home after a family meal at Chow's, a local Chinese restaurant. She lived with her only daughter, Lois, in Culm Road, West Derby. According to Lois, her mother then told her that she was going to stay with a friend named Vicky for a few days, and left the home carrying 3 bags of clothes, dressed in a grey jumper, pink cardigan, dark jeans, and a gold Madonna pendant necklace. That evening, she sent 2 conflicting text messages, one to her only daughter Lois and another to her friend Vicky. In her message to Lois, she said, "I'm going to stay at Vicky's for a few days. Kevin can stay. Make sure you do the house." Kevin was Lois's boyfriend at the time. However, in the message to Vicky, she wrote, I need to go away for a few days. I am sorry. Paula Hounsley was never seen alive again. Within the first 10 days of her disappearance, her bank card was used multiple times, with a total of £850 withdrawn. Notably, only Paula and her daughter Lois were said to know the PIN to the card. Her phone also accumulated over 175 voicemails from worried family members and friends, including Vicky, her parents, and her sisters. None of these messages came from Lois. Almost 3 years passed, until on May 10, 2012, Paula's burnt remains were discovered in a fire pit near the Liverpool Loop Line in Fazakerley, approximately 3 miles from her home. Alongside her skeleton were a gold Madonna pendant necklace, a 20-centimetre kitchen knife, and remnants of melted blue plastic from a wheelie bin. The knife was similar to those found in her home, which Lois and her boyfriend Kevin had been living in. The coroner's report revealed that her remains had only been at the location for 4 to 8 months, suggesting either Paula had been alive more recently than previously thought, or her body had been moved there long after her death. In June 2012, a month after Paula Hounsley's burnt remains were discovered, her daughter Lois, then 21, and her boyfriend Kevin Kavanagh, 20, were arrested on suspicion of murder. They were released on bail the following day, and Paula's house was sealed off for forensic examination. However, in August 2013, both Lois and Kevin were released without charge due to insufficient evidence. In April 2014, Lois was summoned twice to attend her mother's inquest, but failed to appear, citing an asthma attack. Kevin, however, did attend. When questioned by the coroner, he refused to answer, following legal advice to avoid self-incrimination. Even when Paula's father, Steve, emotionally demanded, "Stand there and tell us you had nothing to do with it," Kevin stayed silent. The case remains open, and anyone with information is urged to call police on 101, or if you wish to stay anonymous, you can call the independent charity Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111. Please. Paula, her family, and her friends deserve justice. On the 1st of September 1970, 19-year-old Lorraine Jacob went for a night out with her friends at Yates's Wine Lodge on Great Charlotte Street. Her mother was looking after her 2 young children, so after a couple of hours, she decided to head home, stopping off at the local chippy and buying 3 portions of chips on the way. She was seen walking along Pilgrim Street, chips in hand, at around 11:30 p.m. This was the last time Lorraine Jacob was seen alive. The following morning, Lorraine's body was discovered by bin men in an alleyway behind Rodney Street. She had been strangled, and her underwear was missing. The police launched an extensive investigation, collecting over 900 statements and distributing 3,500 questionnaires around local pubs, clubs, and homes, but to no avail. With no suspects and no substantial evidence, the case went cold for 37 long years. Then, in February 2008, removal men were sent to a house on Reservoir Street in Aspel near Wigan. The property belonged to 77-year-old Harvey Richardson, a retired librarian who had recently passed away from bowel cancer. While clearing out the home, the removal men found an old leather satchel hidden in a wardrobe. Inside, they discovered a pair of faded blue knickers and 9 pages of densely written text. A confession to Lorraine Jacob's murder. The police quickly conducted a DNA test on the underwear, which confirmed a 100% match to Lorraine, validating the confession. It was uncovered that in mid-June 1970, just months before the murder, Richardson had taken a picture of Lorraine's children, which led to an argument between the two. Shortly after the confrontation, Lorraine and a friend visited Richardson's flat on Huskisson Street. Although Richardson was not home, the women entered through the communal area and took 2 cameras from his bedroom. When Richardson returned, he was told of the 2 women callers and immediately knew who was responsible. Their paths didn't cross again until that fateful September night. In his confession, Richardson recounts that, after a day of drinking, he set off toward Upper Duke Street to meet some, quote-unquote, women friends. After bumping into Lorraine, an argument about the stolen cameras ensued. As he put it, he lost his temper and lost control. However, he doesn't explain why he removed her underwear and kept them for almost 40 years. Though Harvey Richardson escaped punishment, one can only hope Lorraine haunted him throughout those years, and that the truth has finally brought some closure for her family. Some murders don't get a documentary. Some victims are lost in time. Remember to like and subscribe, because sooner or later I'll be taking a look at where you live. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.